Hey, what's going on, fellas? Geronimo22 coming back with a video. I figured, you know what? Since we have a little bit of time, let's just go over some real life football and let's compare it to some of the things that we've seen so far when it comes to quarters. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of an install here, but kind of give you an overview from a real life document that I made years ago. All right. Kind of outlining quarters coverage. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing verbatim because it'll take a really long time. Okay. But I do want to just at least highlight some things here that I think might be good for us to take a look at. All right. All right. So, as we know, quarters coverage. Okay. Match coverage. It doesn't have to be match coverage if you guys know. All right. You can actually play zone coverage underneath. All right. But the main and most important thing is to understand is that we're trying to take away the strengths of this coverage. We're trying to take away four verticals. Okay. Now, we talked about the idea of, if you're a linebacker, you don't have to worry about ever running with anybody deep down the middle of the field. Okay. And then also, it gives us 9 men in the box versus the run. Okay. That's one of the most important things. Outside of that, you should not be using quarters really to be doing more than that. And that plays more true than ever when it comes to Madden, the way we are playing it now, because of the way the safeties play. Old school quarters used to have these guys play really robber style quarters where they're taking care of the curls, the digs, okay, that are breaking in from number one when number two goes out. But that's not the case, really, even in real life football right now. You're getting safeties playing over the top of vertical routes. And we'll talk more about that when we actually get some examples, okay? Let's just look at the weaknesses real quick, okay? You can isolate the middle linebacker, a three rec player, on most quarters coverages, right? He has to take number three. And if you remember, when you get empty sets, a lot of times he gets isolated on number three and he has to match him vertical as well. All right. Now, also, there's a space, okay? One back sets, things kind of open up a little bit. It could become one-on-one football even on the second level. All right. And underneath horizontal stretch routes. So this would be something like mesh, right? Where guys are working across the field, stick routes. Again, number three is working away from the Mike linebacker. So the underneath game is pretty much one of the weaknesses. Now, I will add in here, since this is an older document, if you don't have good matchups deep, I think it's not a great coverage on deep throws down the field, 50-50 balls on the outside. All right. I think that's probably one of the weaknesses as well, because you're pretty much going to be in cover zero with your outside corners without really expecting a whole lot of safety help, but we can make changes to that as we go along. And that's the reason why I think a lot of safety play has changed over the years, allowing the safeties to maybe overlap and help out on some of those deep throws. Okay. Okay. So your run support notes in general, I've talked about this in some of my videos, is that our safeties, we're both going to be pretty much D-gap read players coming downhill, working straight down, looking to fill where needed. Now, this defense that I was in here, this is the Raven style defense, that's where this comes from. We always had potentially somebody in a C-gap, okay? It was pretty much built that way. Or I would say that most of the time, C-gaps are taken care of. Everything was always spilled to the outside. All right. Being a 3-4 team, a lot of the defenses were set that way. Only rarely that we ever had to fill inside, really. For the safeties, it was pretty easy. Now, if you play a 4-3 team and you got a wide nine, it's a little bit different. Okay. But a lot of times there was a 5 technique in the 3-4. Okay. So I just want to kind of say that real quick. Now, some of the adjustments, now you have to understand when we made this document, we did not want to put a lot of information on there because we know things get out, right? And I've been holding on to this document for over 10 years and it's going to get out now. But this is like a cover sheet. So even when it comes to the responsibilities, there's not a lot of information. And coaches do that on purpose because we don't want to give it all out. But what you're going to see here, this is a very unique project that I did, was put basically together all the route matches against all the common routes of the NFL at that time. So you're going to see how we match everything up visually. So it's going to be easy for you to kind of follow along. All right. All right. So game plan adjustments, zone it, area, taxi versus 3-by-1. Okay. So every time we get a 3-by-1 formation and you play quarters match, there are different ways to handle how are we going to handle number three vertical, right? How are we going to handle the three receiver side? And each of these are unique. Some of them are 5/3s. Some are just your basic 4/3s. But some are 4/3s with the nickel matching. So zone it is everybody's basically poach coverage, okay? Or in other languages like solo coverage, okay? Area is more of a roll coverage or true zone it. Some people use the word zone it to say we're going to basically play zone coverage. In the Madden world, that would be, or in the NCAA world, or in the college football world, that would be considered turning off your match coverage and letting your safety and your corner play between 1, 2, and 3. All right. And then taxi, the word we use taxi is what everybody's stubby is, okay, and the Nick Saban language, or special in the Gary Patterson language. Basically, nickel is playing palms with the safety over 2 and 3 and with the linebacker. All right. So those are your base adjustments and how you want to play it. It all depends on if you want to bring your backside and safety over. That's how I remember it. Because if your weak side corner is really good, then you can really you can let that free safety to his side do more. He could be involved in the run game. He can come over and play number three. But if you have a really good X receiver, solo receiver by himself, you probably need to double team him. So you need to jump into some of the other worlds, like in this call, area and taxi, or in most people's world, to roll or just zone coverage or stubby. Okay, so that's that. Now, deuce clamp, quads to the backside of 2x2. Different ways of basically playing when you get 2x2 to play the backside. Okay, so we can play two man, we could play cone, we can kind of take care of the backside of the coverage and change it into what in the game right now would be considered six Willie. Okay, so I know I'm talking a lot right now and there's no pictures, but I'm just giving you an overview. All right, so let's get into some of these photos and just kind of look at some of the base stuff that I think can help us. I won't go through this document fully. It's like 185 pages. But at the same time, I think there's some stuff in here that we can look at, draw up on the screen, and then jump on the field and see how it's working in the current game. Before we get to Madden, it'd probably be best to just take a look at some of this stuff. And if this style doesn't work for you, let me know another style, because like I said, I have my whiteboard. I can draw on the board for you. We can obviously spend time on the game and do a lot of stuff on the field, but this allows me to draw on top of the pictures. So I think that's pretty good. All right. Okay, it's always best to start with four verticals. That's always my golden rule. 2x2. Okay. So as we count the numbers of the receivers, we count from the outside in. Wherever the third receiver is in 11 personnel, or wherever there's more receivers to one side of the field, that's considered the passing strength. Okay. So on the right side of the screen, this is the passing strength. That's 1, that's 2. On the left side of the screen, this is away from the passing strength. That's 1, that's 2. And then we have a third eligible receiver who's our running back. He's right now in the home position, or in the dot position, we call it, which means basically under center football. You don't see this a lot in today's football, but this is a little bit older document. So most of the time, this guy is aligned either to the strong side. Some people would say the passing strength side, or he's aligned over here away from passing strength. Some people will say that this is actually considered halfback strong because it's aligned to the same side as a tight end. All right. But in general, these are just some basic things you need to know. Now, the other thing is this side of the field over here where the passing strength is, we have what we call a detached number two. So when number two walks out of the box area, or he's not a wing. A wing would be, let's say, the receiver aligned right here, okay, or he's lined like a tight end with his hand in the dirt. That's called attached, or a part of the formation, part of the core, okay? As soon as he gets up and walks out, let's just say 5 yards outside of the core, he becomes a detached receiver. So you need to just know that. A lot of people will give that a name, like this side of the field would be called twins, okay? A lot of people would say that. And then over here, this tight end with his hand in the dirt, they would call that usually a pro side, okay? You hear some people say let's just leave it alone there, okay? But that would be more of a pro side, okay? A pro would usually just mean either a tight end and a receiver, okay? Or it could just mean actual just a receiver outside. Okay? All right, cool. So I remember doing a video like this a year or so ago. I'm getting flashbacks, okay? just some of the basic things we need to know when we talk about formations and as we go along. As more come up, we'll talk about it. But let's get back to quarters coverage. So I always start with the corners because really their job, in my opinion, is a little bit the easiest job in the field. Now, we were a press corners team. Okay. This is coming from the Jets and this is coming from the Buffalo Bills with Mike Patton. We basically tried to make their life easy for the corners. We made sure we drafted corners like Stephon Gilmore and people like that to play press. Okay. That was what people did back then. It was really the best thing to do. If you had the corners and you could still play it, you did that most of the time. Really, what that did was it made people change their route schemes to really only running verticals and slants. There was really nothing else that people felt confident running against our team. Okay. Now, the word Meg, which you see on the screen right there, means man everywhere he goes. Okay. So we played our corners Meg, man everywhere they go from the press position. And if you play the game, if you get this type of what I call, let me just say this is a 2x2 double set. Okay. Normal spacing. Okay. So this is just basically, like I said, he's about 5 yards here. He's spread out probably somewhere on the numbers. He's somewhere on the numbers, normal spacing, regular football. We're not going to talk about the wide splits today. We're not going to talk about the compressed splits today because that will change things. We're just talking about normal spacing. So 2x2 doubles is pretty much how you want to look at it. All right. The outside corners, if you press them in the game, they will play Meg. One of the adjustments that I actually do want to use is doing that and seeing what happens. Okay. Now, most time though, these guys are playing off the ball. All right. They're going to play MOD technique. Okay. The reason why I'm calling it MOD is because a lot of people have different ways of calling this, saying what it is. The most popular way is man outside and deep. Okay. Meaning that if number one was to run an out route, even at 5 yards, the corner would take it. Okay. If he was to run a 10-yard out route, he would take it. And obviously, if any route goes past 10 yards, he will take it. Okay. That's the most common way, and that's the way the game is usually programmed. But there are years where it kind of changes, okay? It becomes what I used to call it when I was first taught it. It was called man over depth, meaning that any route under 5 yards, he would let it go, okay? By the way, I didn't say, even with the original man outside and deep, if this guy was to run a shallow or a 5 yard in or a little hitch, he lets it go. Okay. He becomes a zone defender with eyes on two. All right. So just want to make sure we understand that. I'm giving you some basics without giving you the actual repetition of what your keys and reads are right now. I'll do that when I get to the other corner and the other side. I just want to talk about this MOD technique. Now, in the game right now, the corners are actually backing up. Okay. And they're not playing the outside breaking routes that I told you with man outside. So if you get a 5 yard out, he's letting it go. Okay. Even if you get that speed cut, if you notice a lot of the routes are speed cut and he rolls at 8 to 10, even if he rolls at 10 to 12, this corner is playing a lot loose and not reacting up to that right now. Okay. So that's something you need to know just based on number one. If he runs a slant, obviously he's letting it go. Okay. So let's just go on the field real quick and just see that example live so we could just get an idea of what it looks like. Okay, so we have a 2x2 formation. We're playing quarters. Okay, and all I'm going to do right here is our outside corners are playing off. So, like I had said, their technique in this game is man over depth mod. So I'm going to run a 5 yard out. Okay, just going to talk about this. And you see how the corner doesn't take it. He kind of sits there and hovers for a little bit, but he's not driving down on that route. All right. So this is something you have to test every game. Let's take the 5 yard, the 10 yard out, which I'm going to show a replay of this so you guys don't get confused. Actually, interesting. They did box it off there. Hold on 1 second here. All right. There goes the speed out cut. And I'm going to take that route and just put it up to about right there. Now he's going to speed cut this at 8 yards, which is going to give him the 10. But again, this throw is pretty much there. The corner does open up, but in past games, he would be a lot tighter on this. This wasn't an available throw last year, okay? If I time this up, I know this is a really long throw. The corner is going to open up and get some depth and then drive down late. Now, this could be a little bit based off of the way man plays this year. It's very, very loose, I would say. So maybe he is transitioning to man, but he's just not playing that quickly. All right. But the most important thing is if you get the quick 5 yard out, okay, he's just going to let that go. He's not going to take that route. All right. He's going to play back and play off and just react down to the throw. Now, everything else, though, that we talked about, which is regular, look at the left side. If you just run an underneath route, he's obviously going to let that go. That's a shallow. If we get any type of slant route, okay, and when I say let that go, it just means that now he's going to zone off and watch number two. So number two is running vertical, so you see how he runs with him vertical, okay? So he kind of plays with zone vision, looking to bracket number two, okay? So we'll talk more about that as we go along because we're going to get some examples of that. The only other example I can think of is a smoke screen, okay? So he's going to now let this go, look to zone off on number two, all right? So that's just the beginning of his technique. Now, we're going to go back into the actual drawings here in a second. Now, the issue is, and this is probably worth the price of admission, is the 10-yard dig route, okay? 10 to really 15 to 20. A corner here is supposed to match this route, okay? Now, when you watch this route, there's two things happening. I'd like to get your opinion on it, guys, and see what you think. Right. The very first thing is this. You're seeing that the route itself is starting to break at about 8 yards. So some people can say, well, he's man over depth. What's man over depth? Is it 8? Is it 10? Well, if it's 10, he can let it go. So you would think, okay, that's just the way it plays, right? Now let me take that same route and make it even deeper. Let's get it back to about maybe, sorry guys, I'm not used to using this. That looks like 15 to 20. Okay. Now, don't mind the underneath coverage with what's going on with the linebackers. They're going to kind of get in the way here. So just ignore those guys, but just check this out. Okay. So he didn't chase that guy across the field with two going vertical. And that's what it looks like could be part of the issue in general, but it's not always about that. We're going to test it out with two not going vertical. But look, again, I mean, this route is deep down the field. At this point, he should be transitioning to, I have him matched up man to man, right? He breaks inside and he lets it go. He is in the corner, okay? So now I know you guys see the nickel coming and covering underneath. We're going to get to him in a second, but just want to show you that. Now let's get two out and let's just get one deep again, okay? Let's get him a little bit deeper. Now, is he expecting a safety to make this play? Is that what's going on? I'm not sure. It's too early to know for sure. But again, I know there's a 3-receiver hook player right there that just picked it off. But just notice how the corner lets that guy go. Okay. It's very interesting how that works. I don't know exactly why we're doing this. I'm not sure. Now, and when I was playing or when I was coaching, this technically can be considered a zone it, where we're not going to, if there's only one guy deep, or if both guys, if 1 and 2 are switching deep, we can essentially let the safety take it over. And that would make sense, but I'm not 100% sure. So we got to kind of look at this as we go forward. We have to also take a look at it on Madden to see if it's the same, okay? But that really covers the corner's responsibility when it comes to the pass. For the run responsibility, his responsibility is just an outside secondary support player. All right. So I'll look at that when we get back onto the PowerPoint, but I just want to let you know that's what it is. All right. Okay. Just to finish up, if for some reason there is a run play, okay, and coming out to this side of the field, and we block, okay, the receiver for the most part would try to block him, maybe in any direction. Most receivers are nowadays taught to just stalk block the guy head up. Whichever way you go, he'll kind of push you in that direction. And if the ball goes outside, okay, you need to react late. So you'll be down the field, deep down the field. And just, you want to start on the outside, okay? You want to be a secondary force defender, which means that basically you aren't the primary. It's going to be the safety, a nickel, whoever it is, okay? But if the ball gets, they're going to always make sure the ball goes out to wherever who's outside, okay? Whoever's the first primary force defender is going to be outside, and then the secondary force defender will be outside as well if the ball gets outside. If there is a crack block for some reason, okay, so this is the will here. If this guy comes and crack blocks him, okay, then now that's when you become, okay, I'm the new crack replace primary force defender. Okay, I need to make sure that if anybody else tries to come and blocks me, I'm keeping my outside arm and leg free. Okay, so it's pretty easy for him when it comes to the run. All right, now let's move on to the safeties. Okay, so both corners we're pretty much set. We're playing MOD technique. Okay, we're playing man over depth. We'll just call it mod technique. Okay, and that's where we know we still have some things to figure out as we go along. Okay, so the keys again. We have number one. We have number two. Okay, so our corners are keying 1 to 2. All right, to the ball. Our safeties are going to key 2 to 1. All right. If we get a vertical route of number 2, so again, that's any route over really 8 yards, but over 10 yards, really what the safeties are supposed to do from old school quarters is to lock on to number 2. However, it looks as if this new depth is looking like it's somewhere around 15 yards down the field if the guy's going vertical or inside. Okay. So teams are running that like 12-yard dig. Don't expect the safety to take that anymore. Okay. That's kind of a new thing, and that's okay. As long as everybody's working together, we can live with that. But if we do get a 15-yard out or a 12-yard out, the safety will definitely absolutely take any outbreaking routes with more, to be more assertive. Okay. So that's what you should expect. If we get a situation where number 2 goes out under, okay, under 8 yards, 8 to 10 yards, then this safety becomes what I would call a free player. Okay. So let me just kind of talk about that because that's going to be big compared to what we're used to. It used to be this guy would be a 2 out or 2 in. He would look to rob and to get underneath the curl, right? The dig, and then obviously the post. That's old school. If you watch football on TV, especially in the NFL, but even at the college level, even the TCU team that I'm going to try to make a playbook about, every safety is sitting at 12 yards, 14 yards, and these guys are hauling ass almost, getting back, taking away the deep stuff. And I think it really comes back to, talked about, the idea of this route right here, this 10-yard route or this little sit-down route, and everybody and their mother is built, as in their offense, to beat quarters coverage with a concept called mills or divide, where they're trying to high-low the safety and make the corner have to play that deep post route, right? A lot of times, and even when I was coaching in the NFL, we would go into games and say, hey, we know they're going to do this. So why are we going to fall for the bait? Let's have the safety play deep over the top inside. Corner can stay outside and backers underneath. You guys are going to have to sink back a little bit and get into that window and take care of these digs, okay? Because that's really just bait anyway, right? We don't want to be, we're getting baited a lot. So I think the game in general has kind of reverted to that. And I know I've been one of the people to complain about it, but we need to adjust to what's happening in real life. And how can you get beat the quickest, okay? So that's kind of the safety technique. He's really more of a true zone quarters player, and he will react up, but he still will react up to run. Okay. Now, if number 2 does work out, let's just say, and number 1 does run that deep dig like we just talked about, I'm not sure if this safety is supposed to sit here and jump that. Maybe that's the reason why the corner who's playing mod is letting that go. If it becomes like an 18-yard dig, hey, why not? You better go take that, right? So just thinking about that, I'm not for sure. But obviously, if we get just the regular vertical, once he gets past a certain point, he has to take him. He has to take him past 15 yards. That's your guy, manned up, man to man, okay? That's the basic idea of the safety play and the pass coverage. Now, we don't have a D line up here. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty because this video would be extra long. It's going to be long anyway, guys, but it's going to be extra long. But in general, the way I've always taught safeties is you probably have to work off of the force player directly ahead of you, okay? So in this case, we have a will linebacker, let's just say. This can also be a nickel will, doesn't matter, star, whatever you call it. A lot of times his run fits has a certain rule. You just have to work off of him, make him right, okay? So in this case right here, and we're going to talk more about this too when it comes to the RPO times when we get into RPO defense. A lot of people are just saying the safety, usually to the side of the back. Let's say the back is over here, okay? Or the passing strength safety. It could be that one too. It's not a run for its player. Okay, we're just gonna play. We're not gonna play 9-man football. We're gonna play 8-man football. Let the safety be the guy to come down. We want to keep him deep so that if we do get a glance route or something like that, he's in that window. That's new football compared to old football. All right, so I'm kind of mixing it in there with you as I study and learn about it too. It's really good to know. But anyway, in general, you will still read what I like to read is this triangle here. Okay, so you're keying two, right? Obviously, if he comes in stock blocks, boom, okay, you're going to come downhill. Now, one thing people talk about if you want to use this guy, play with some depth. Don't go to so don't start coming downhill right away. Don't backpedal right away. Just sit there for a second or two, okay? There's no rush, but maybe in today's world, there's a slight backpedal because you want to play deep. Okay. And if you see a stalk block, obviously that's one of your clues, but that can't be your only clue, right? That's the problem. You also need to see open linemen. So if there was a defensive end here and there was a G technique or whatever, it is really hard to see. If this guy wasn't here and there was nobody in the guard to save the tackle and it ends, let's go back on this. The open side is pretty hard to see. I'm not even going to lie. Honestly, when I coached it and when I played it, there's always one lineman that's open. You just got to find it. And usually the center is one of the cues that I learned in the NFL. It's like one of the best things to do. Because I guarantee you that if it's a pass play, he's going to help out he's going to look to double team and get a hand up right away and be in a pass protection mode if it's a drop back pass. So if this guy like posts up and looks over to the side, kind of an easy way to tell it's a drop back pass. If it's a run, you're going to see that step and all that good stuff. Now, I know we have RPO coverage to worry about, but you're going to see him step forward. You're going to see him double team. You're going to see him with the lower hand. If you see him pop up with a higher hat, it gives you a clue. So it's something that safeties need to work on and just get run pass keys. The great thing is that you don't have to make a decision in the first second or two. You can pretty much let it play out for a second and then tell if you know. Another thing is if we're in the gun and the quarterback has the ball in his hand and there's no mesh whatsoever with the running back, there's no fake handoff, there's nothing there. It's obviously a pass. Okay, so then you can just know that. So some of the keys are kind of different, right? But that's the most important thing is where do you fit? You can fit inside or outside depending on what happens to the guy in front of you. All right. So we'll see how that plays out because in the game itself, especially when it comes to this player over here, I've noticed that a lot of times their run fits are like down tight into C gap. Okay. And these guys, if they get reached by this guy, they get down too far down and they can't react out here in time because the angles are really bad. You'd rather him sit there and then come down a little bit later and then he can make the reaction on time instead of doing it late. So that's just something to think about. Let me actually show you some more of these pictures on this slide so you get a good view of this. And just the funny thing is that we're going to get some combinations here that are pretty easy to see. So on the right-hand side, the safety is going to play that dig. That's old school. Now he may not play that dig, okay? That corner route, yes, the safety would play that on the left side. Right side, we get just a vertical route. We got it. Okay, left side, we do have a tight formation with a wing set. We're not going to worry about that right now. Okay, this one is a good one to see. So now we have a situation where we have no number two going vertical. Okay. What happens is, what happens is we used to call them bandits. Okay, but hold on a second here, guys. I don't know what's going on. Okay, we used to call this bandits. These guys are going to basically drop and help out where needed. But in today's football, again, and in the game itself, it's to get back and protect that post. Okay, that's the rule. We used to have different rules where we can have them cheat towards certain things. Okay, but right now, that's how we're going to play it, and that's how the game plays it. Okay, so let me see if there's any other examples here that we can take a look at here because we can't get through obviously all of the routes on the field. It takes a long time, but let's just see if they have. That's why I'm trying to show you the PowerPoint as well. All right, nothing here that's really going to help us, I think. Okay. All right, now we're into some bunch formations. Okay, and then that's that. All right, let's go to the field real quick. Let's take a look at these safeties. Let's see how they're playing. Okay, so left field safety, right? He's going to work down the field. This is a straight vertical, easy stuff. Nothing crazy. The great thing now is because they gave the quarterback all of the adjustments when it comes to The routes, I can just give you different routes for him, right? So let's go two in the corner. They play this pretty well. I would not, I actually trust it enough that I'm starting. This used to be a weakness of the defense, in my opinion, where this corner route would get open a lot. But that corner route, maybe because of the angle of this one, that safety can get there and get a hand on it or get a knockout. So I feel good about the corner routes. That's something that's good about this coverage. Okay, now let's go with the big route. Okay, I'm going to go to about 10 yards and watch the safety here. Okay. Okay, he played that one. I'm actually shocked that he played that one. Let's take a look at how deep it went, because that's going to be important to see. 5, 10. Okay, he's at 14 to 15 yards. He did play the hell out of that. Okay, so let me just look at this with a speed cut. I don't know if we can do a speed cut. I can't do a speed cut. Some players speed cut if they're better, just so you know, some don't. All right, let me just try it one more time. I know he gets jammed up a little bit. Okay, that time he doesn't. So this is how Madden was last year, and this is how this game is. You cannot rely on that player. It's almost like it's like the quarterback read off of the option or zone read. It's very variable. Like you don't know. I think most of the time you're going to get this reaction. Okay, you're going to get the safety here. He's going to be just playing deep to help out on the post. It's been a real issue, guys, obviously, with the safeties, and sometimes they don't do anything. They'll be in the post, but they won't play it right. You know what I mean? This one's playing a vertical to the side. Let's take a look at the tight end running a 10-yard dig on the backside, okay? Let's see if I can get this in there real quick. Hold on. Okay, let's go. He might get hit. Nope, he doesn't. 10-yard dig. Okay, so that ended up becoming like a 14, 15-yard dig. That's one time. Let's do it again. Okay. Now, I've always noticed this, and I don't want to speak on it too soon, but the right safety on the right side always played more aggressive. So when you get a chance, check out, just let me know if the left safety is less aggressive and the right one is more aggressive. Or let me know if it's a field side situation compared to a non-field side situation. Okay. But let me just kind of get a route here. That would be something that we can look at. Let's look at curl combo real quick. All right, we'll go against quarters coverage. Now watch these safeties, right? They are not going to react to number one. Let's do that again because obviously the corners are playing far off. I didn't talk about the corners as well. I didn't realize the corners are playing that far off. Jeez. So you can count a curl route to be considered an inside breaking route where the corners are not playing them. So that's just a real problem. This one he did. Okay. So different reactions. Overall, you're going to get more of the corners not. But the most important thing is the safeties. They're not going to drive these routes. They're not going to play these routes. That's a robber coverage mentality. Okay, so that's just something you should know. All right, so that's pretty much all the coverages that. Oh, let's look at a run play real quick. Okay, my apologies. I do want to get some more run fits in there as we do this stuff because coverage is not all about just stopping the pass. Okay, even though it's called coverage. Let me just get a quick run play. We know a lot of these plays are not very good. I'm going to use halfback base. All right. So just watch the safeties. They're pretty aggressive. They kind of pause for a second and they come downhill and they fill where needed, either C gap or D gap. Okay. So both safeties are sitting back there. As the ball snap, they key, they wait, and they come downhill. Now, in this case, our nickel, right? He's outside leverage. He should be outside leverage. Okay. But in general, the safeties always just kind of come down to the D gap area. So like this is where D gap, this is actually C gap. I apologize. They come back down to the C gap area and kind of fit straight downhill. Okay, they will try to bounce out sometimes, but this is part of the problem in the game that the safeties sometimes get caught inside, and people are running to the sideline and getting easy gains. So let me try to trick this outside, even though I do have a nickel that doesn't really get blocked. People will try to run outside out here and, see if they can bounce it. And in this game, it's an easy way to get an easy way to get yards. In Madden, this wasn't working as much when it came to the run fits in the beta. So, but you see how the safety comes downhill and then he works outside. right? It becomes an alley player, okay, and tries to tackle him inside out. Now, let's get into the linebackers, okay, and the nickel. Let's start with the nickel. The nickel has the most problems. I've made separate videos on this, but we do need to understand his responsibilities. So let's just go back to the PowerPoint real quick. Okay, so our linebacker here and our nickel, okay, or our will linebacker, if you're a 4-3, walked out linebacker, same thing. We will be playing what we call quarter flat technique, okay? I didn't give you the safety name, we just call it quarter safety, okay? So we have a mod corner or a meg corner. We have a quarter safety, okay, and then we have a quarter flat defender, all right? So quarter flat. So the word flat is always in every coverage, is always a flat defender, but there's different types of flat defenders, okay? And the flat defenders are going to be playing really over number two, wherever number two is. That's their main priority, even in 3-by-1, but we're going to start here with 2-by-2. So our number two, again, is right here. We're looking at him first, okay? Now, after that, our key would be number three. So we're going to look from 2 to 3. All right. Now, some people can do perif both at the same time because a lot of times if you get a fast 3 to the flat, you're going to basically just go get them. But our job and responsibility is this. If number 2 works outside under 10 yards, okay, we are going to match him. He's ours. Okay. If number 2 was to work inside 10 yards, and number 3 goes outside fast right now. So fast 3 is somebody that just goes to the flat right now. We will take number 3 or the new number 2, right? Because this guy comes in, he goes out. So he now becomes number 2 and this guy becomes number 3, okay, after the snap. If you're a Saban fan, you hear him always say, after the distribution, after the route distribution, who's actually the new number 3 or new number 2. Now, if number 2 goes vertical, what is vertical? Well, once he gets past your original depth, usually you're aligning at about 4 yards or so. If he's running past you, numbers are square, you're supposed to get hands on him and jam him up. Because this safety, we don't want, usually our safety isn't our fastest player. We don't want these guys getting up too fast on the safety or potentially bending in too fast, like on a bender, okay? We wanted to make it so that he has to bubble around us and work through our body a little bit. Now, is that realistic? Not so much. In the NFL, you don't really get that too much. Okay. At college, you get more of it. It helps. Now, once he's gone, the old school responsibility was to quarter flat defender. Once he's vertical, to become basically a curl flat defender. Okay. Lying again, who? Number 3, quarterback, all that good stuff. All right. That's not the case anymore. And it kind of goes into a clinic that I actually had saw recently versus 3-by-1. And I don't want to go into 3-by-1, but really kind of came back to a lot of times this guy doesn't have any work. Okay. Now, that's an easy route combination I'm giving you right now. I will say though, if this guy runs a hitch, 5-yard hitch, or he runs a 5-yard end, that doesn't look like 5 yards. Let me do that again. If number 1 runs something short like this, okay, or a hitch, or even an out, this will, if he gets a 2 vertical, he will kind of expand out to him late. All right, that quarter flat defender will expand out to him late. If you get the classic shin route, okay, like a levels concept, he will actually kind of sink a little bit, but he will kind of match this pretty quickly. Okay, so that's something to think about. I didn't say that in the beginning, but I just want to make sure you know that. If number 3 again goes out, we understand what's going to happen. But if number 3 was to step away, okay, and go that direction, and we get vertical routes by these 2 players in the game right now, our quarter flat defender is sinking back. Okay. Now, why is he sinking back? Because he doesn't have any flat work. Okay. And technically, this linebacker here in the middle, 3 receiver hook player, we call him a 3 vert player back in the day. He should be matching any type of route coming back across the field. Even if the back steps through and does this on either side, okay, he should be matching number 3. Now, does that happen? Not all the time. So that's part of the problem, okay? But this is something new that we have written up so far. At least I know I've talked about in my stream how it's a problem in the game, but technically it's not, okay? And there are some route combinations, especially when we get to 3-by-1, that you do want to have your nickel potentially playing a little bit of depth and trying to help out on some routes that could potentially break outside. But that's another story for another day. All right. So that is that. Now, run responsibility, he needs to be able to play his pass responsibility first in real life, which is what? Flat. Okay. And then he was still key what I talked about, the triangle. So he can read however you teach it, however people coach it, high hat, low hat, quarterback, all that good stuff. I won't go through that right now. But from a run gap standpoint, depending on where the ball goes, okay? So if it's a fast flow play out here, he is technically a cutback player, okay? Which puts him in a bind if we do get a bubble of two, all right? In my personal opinion, it should only be versus wide outside zone runs that puts him into a bind. But when we play the game, we're going to see that even if it is an inside zone play, okay, especially obviously from the gun. So let's put the back over here and he steps this way to run. You will see in quarters coverage, this player will start bouncing inside, okay? And the problem is in quarters coverage, he's deep, okay? He's not reacting up to that if this guy runs a bubble. So that's one of the issues that is not fixed. It's not broken necessarily, but a lot of coaches in today's game will actually make it so that the run front makes sure that this guy doesn't have to come in and potentially play an interior gap, okay, versus when he runs. They would keep him out of the box and take care of it with this guy, and this guy, okay, which you can do. This game is not programmed that way. So just understand if you call quarters coverage and you get that type of play, there's a good potential that bubble's going to be open even after they put that patch in. Now, the patch said to everybody that anybody that has a flat responsibility, if it's a bubble, he's going to play the bubble first, but that's a lie. That's not true. So we'll take a look at that in the field. Before we get to the field real quick, I will say that um, if the back is offset over here, this nickel plays a lot better. Okay. If the back, obviously steps up and goes out or anything happens right now, he plays a little bit more firm and doesn't drop back with depth. When that back is over here, he really gets back. And if we get a classic dagger combination like this with the back over here to the left, you're going to see this nickel almost look like he's running to get underneath that dig route, which is maybe the way they programmed it to try to take away the dig because the corner is not playing the dig. Okay. Classic combinations that give this coverage issues are mesh combinations. Again, it's no work. With this guy going away and the nickel's not waiting for this guy, he's going to start sinking back a little bit much. He may not react up to this mesh route in time. Okay. And also the Mike linebacker starts to work with them and then all of a sudden falls off late. So people that run mesh against quarters has a lot of success against it. All right, let's get on the field. Let's take a look at some basic route combinations. I didn't talk about the backside guy. Okay. He has the same responsibilities and he also is in a very similar conflict. You can see this is an underfront, but most people are going to have this player standing here. Then if two goes to the flat and he's in the box and has a run gap, let's say it's B gap, he's going to be in a bind. Okay. So this is where palms comes into play, which is another coverage, even though palms doesn't work versus this formation, which is what it's built for. Palms would be an answer to this. And when we get to palms, we'll talk about it. But honestly, you're going to have to think about playing cover two, especially especially if it looks a formation like this, where it's a tight end pro set, in order for it to work correctly in the game. Okay. But I'm already into the 301 course right now. Let's stick with 101 and let's get on this field. Let's take a look at it. And then we're going to be finishing up here pretty soon. And we'll get better. All right. Be right back. Okay, so let's take a look at our quarter flat defenders on defense, which is going to be our nickel in this case. We're nickel over, okay, and then our weak side linebacker aligned over here. All right, we're going to get the same route concept here on each side. We're going to watch them play it out. This is just vertical, so watch them get hands on number two, and then we're going to talk about them sinking back or not sinking back. I'm going to do it 2 times because practice mode is a little bit screwy. Sometimes the first time you do something, it doesn't look the same. All right. But you can see here, especially if you look at that weak side linebacker, how bad he dropped back in the coverage, man. I mean, this is like crazy. But take a look. He gets hands on number two. He doesn't get hands on number two. That's okay because he got bumped off anyway. He can't realistically get hands on number two with his alignment anyway. But you see here, with nobody heading out to the flat, number three steps up and just sits down. That's not to the flat technically. He's pretty much still in that hook area or curl area. The quarter flat defender is almost on top of the tight end. And then he breaks down late. Okay. Once he sees the running back sit down. Let me back up a little bit here. Let's look at the nickel player, right? With nobody going out to the flat, this dude, he got hands on number two. I didn't show you that part, right? And then he sinks back and gets back with so much depth, right? Now, again, with one was the break in, he might play it a little bit different. So let's do this again. Let's put number one on that dig route that we talked about, okay? Watch the nickel to the left and how he tries to run with number one across the field. He doesn't have any work, so he's basically finding work and running over there, which is just very unique, but it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Especially with the way the coverage is playing. Now, number three, the reason why that linebacker's in the way, guys, is because number three is checking through. He should be looking over here. This is always the problem with quarters coverage. The middle linebacker doesn't play it right, but he shouldn't be there. This linebacker should be sitting over here to where the running back is checking through the line of scrimmage, but whatever. Look at that nickel, right? All right. So you got an idea of what happens. Now, if the back for some reason was over here, you might get a different response. The back, I'm just going to kind of like put him through a check down through the middle of the field here. I'm not going to have him work out right away. I'm going to put number one on that same dig route and watch the nickel. Okay. He actually tried to do the same thing. So I take that back. All right. Well, let's go back to the same thing. Let's move the back over and let's put the back out to the flat right now. Let's go with the flat route combination right here. So this would be considered a fast three. So nickel's reading, quarter flat strong is reading 2 to 3. 2 goes out, 2 goes up, 3 goes out. He can go match number 3. Okay. So that's easy. Same thing if we got it to the flat to the other side of the screen on the right-hand side, right? Back goes to the flat. Now our quarter flat goes and gets him right now. Okay. So that makes life easy and that's very easy to see. No problem there. Now let's get number 2. Let's just work on a 5-yard out on both sides. Okay. A quarter flat defender should take first to the flat of 2. And they do. So every year you do that, you should always just see the technique of how the quarter flat defender plays it. Is he tight to him? Does he back up too far? In past years, last year, quarter flat defender kind of got a little bit of depth early in the year, then they kind of patched it. But these guys are pretty tight over here. So this is where people say quarters coverage isn't good, but it does have some merit versus certain routes. Okay. So I'm kind of showing you some of the merits here. Now, real quick, I did not put in a slant route real quick. Let me just do that. We didn't talk about the safeties, all the corners about slants and quick game. This changes from year to year. We know the corners are playing mod. They're going to let slant go. Okay. They're going to let it go. Now, the safeties are playing with so much depth that we usually don't react on to these slant routes. Okay. And obviously, our quarter flat defender is going to be what? Matching 2 to the flat. So a lot of times, by theory, the slant route's wide open. You just have to watch out for the 3 receiver hook player. So I bet you if I would have read that correctly, if I went away from the 3 receiver hook player, I would be hitting this backside slant. Right. So a lot of my videos, because I know I talk a lot about different route combinations. I feel like that's one of my things I like to do. Because theory is great, but we need to see routes. And this gives you answers from an offensive point of view. What kind of routes you can run versus this coverage, okay? Now, another thing here is the good old zig route combination. Let me see if I can get I can't really get a zig on this side. I'm going to go with a wheel on the right-hand side and a zig on the... So let's get a zig here. Did I get a zig? Hold on. All right, zig. So a zig has the receiver breaking in and then back out. That's always been a little bit of a problem because the quarter flat defender kind of doesn't think, he thinks it's an inside breaking route. So he kind of starts backing up. Inside, he actually froze. I don't know what he's doing because he's actually outside and he's good, but he still gets beat to the outside. So that's a route that people will use against you. Let me look at the wheel route. So anytime you're a flat defender in match coverage, okay, some people do this in spot drop coverage as well too, but if number two, the first guy you're keying, ever runs to the outside, you match him, right? And then if he runs, again, short and outside, not deep and outside, short and outside, you match him. But if he turns up and runs a wheel, you match him as well. Okay. So our safety is still matching this wheel, which I haven't talked about here. I haven't seen that before. I don't think the safety should be doing this. That to me, that's a really silly thing to do, but that's that. Okay. All right. Now let's look at one or two more combinations, and then let's talk about some of the adjustments you can make with your nickel. That's going to be big to know. Okay. All right. Our nickel. So let's watch him. Two is working in. Okay. And then there's another two working from the opposite side. So he lets two go, and then he waits for the new two. That's not bad. Okay. I don't see this happening all the time, but it's not bad. Let me take another look at it real quick. So this would be like a mesh combination, right? With just those two underneath guys. We don't have the deeper route sitting over the middle of the ball. I don't know if that would affect anything, but it's not bad. So again, this is actually not a bad route that this coverage is playing against. So you can get away with this. Okay. Our linebacker on the left has a little bit of a problem because technically his new number two is the back. So he's honoring him first. Okay. So that's a little bit of a problem. Now, just to let you know, now the way I would like to play this in real life is that these, let me actually go back on the PowerPoint. Okay. I actually would like to play it like this. I think we have an example of it here. Hold on. Okay. Here we go. This is to me the best way to play it. All right. I drew this up way long time ago, and I at first didn't understand it, but it makes sense, right? We haven't gotten to the three vertical player or the three receiver hook player, okay? But I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of information on him. He's going to key to the side of where number three steps to. So number three steps this way, okay? Or if the back is offset this way, he already knows where he is, all right? He's keying left to right. If anybody from that side of the field goes across his face, he should wall it and take it. Okay? Simple as that. What we're doing is kind of splitting the field down the middle and making it so he's part of the left side of the field as soon as the back steps to the left. Anybody from that side goes over to the other world, they got to go with them to the dark side. All right? Over here, our will defender, our quarter flat defender, let me get rid of some of these lines. And I've said this so many times, and they haven't put it in the game. They would probably never put it in the game, but maybe they will one day. He's keying what? 2 to 3. The golden rule is if 3's away, okay, and that could be by alignment. So if he was aligned here as a halfback, that means 3 was aligned away from me. And when I say away is the quarterback is right here. He's on the left side of quarterback, okay? Or if it's in the dot like it is here, and he steps this way to the left, 3's away. If 3's away and 2 is inside, I must match 2. Okay? Because again, this is a situation where this is a different world, right? We don't know what's going on the other side of the field. They could be potentially getting this, right? They could be getting, let me get something else, but he could be a fast 3, right? He could just be working a little out route there and he's gone. That would pull these players out of here, right? He's on that. He's pushing over to 2, pushing over to 3. There's nobody there, right? There's nobody there to take this crosser. So you have to take him. Now, I believe to just stay in that world and let guys play fast instead of making switch calls and all that stuff. But you can see here, that's pretty much how we have this thing drawn up. All right. Now in the game, though, they're not going to do that. They will start to match and then they will fall off late. So let's go back to the field and just take a look at this real quick. You will see sometimes that the 3 receiver hook player will actually start to work. The middle guy, the middle linebacker will start to work to one side, and then he would just kind of pass off late. It looks good on paper there, kind of, sort of, until you see that number 2 was wide open going across the field, right? Nobody took him, and that nickel would never take him. So sometimes when I play the game, I actually use the nickel more than anybody else, okay? And that nickel needs to know that versus this type of route, okay, with 3 away, just stay on this guy. And you pray to God that our Mike linebacker does what I said and takes this number 3 across the field and stays with him. The problem is you usually do get this, right? You get this. He starts to move that way, And by that time, hopefully, if your pass rush is good, this is why pass rush is so important if you're going to play quarters. Most quarterbacks are going to come off of that number 3 read. They're not going to wait for him. Bad players are going to run around and wait, and then you're going to get this guy potentially wide open. If not, you could potentially get this guy open, okay? Now, if I was to keep the back in or do something with the back, it would look a lot better, but I don't want to jigsaw this up too much, but let's put this back on a wheel, okay? So what happens here is that our back, how do we get a wheel here? They changed the damn settings here. Okay, here we go. All right. So now our quarter flat defender on the right is going to take that wheel. Okay. And there's nobody on this shallow. Okay. I could have just put the quarter flat defender to the flat, but I wanted to get him out of there completely. All right. So that's what's going on. Now, with all of these issues that I'm showing you, don't be nervous to play this coverage. Just understand that if people are running a lot of mesh where everybody's getting out, you better, number one, blitz more, or you better change your coverage, okay? And this is the last part before I get to the linebacker about changing coverage. Take a look at these nickels, okay? These nickel players and this linebacker. So I apologize, the quarter flats. You put these guys into any other assignment, everybody would play zone to their side. I'll say it again. Take the nickel, take the quarter flat defender, put him into a curl flat, okay? And watch what happens. Everybody's going to play zone coverage, okay? Everybody's just going to spot drop. I'm going to run the exact same route, so you won't get an idea with the deep routes, but look at the underneath guys, okay? And watch how they play spot drop zone, okay? That weak side linebacker got a lot of depth. I don't know why, but he's playing spot drop zone. And honestly, it sounds crazy, but it's okay to do this. It's okay to play zone it, as I would call it, or just play area, or just play some sort of defense like this from time to time. It's not the most sound defense in the world. It's not what you want to live in, but it does at least help out. And I mean, these guys are really acting crazy. I didn't realize in curl flat they get that wide, okay? You can also start to use your what? You can go into your coaching adjustments, right? And you can make changes. Now, it's a little bit tedious to kind of like turn them on and turn them off, but you can go into your coaching adjustments and you can start putting your guys to drop to certain depths in the flat or the curl flats. So let's just say we want them to get to 5 yards, okay? We're going to call quarters again. Let me see if I actually have a route that I can get the same thing. I don't have to draw it up. All right, I gotta kind of put it together here. I'm going to stay with verticals for now. It just makes it easier for me. Okay. So now our flat defenders are going to do what? They're going to play to 5 yards. All right. But we're still going to get our defense overall to play what? Zone. Now, the biggest thing, and this is probably one of the biggest tips coming in the 57th minute of the video, but just in general, this used to be a problem last year, and I have to explain everything slowly to make sure everybody gets it and make sure we're all on the same page. Our defenders deep last year, all right, our quarter defenders, safeties, and our mod corners, they would play quarters no matter what you did to the nickel or the quarter flat. So they would still match everything. So if you took number 2, you took your nickel and put them into a hard flat, you would still get a match from your safety, okay? And what would happen is sometimes, especially if you were playing palms or stubby or special, if you were playing that, all means the same thing, by the way. I'm just giving it all the different names that everybody uses. Basically, you could potentially bust coverage and have nobody covering number 2 vertical if 3 went vertical. So that's something that they took away, I think, to help us, to like basically allow us to say, hey, if you make a change to any of these guys, everybody on this side is affected. And this has always been the case. And I've said this 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. When you played cover 3 seam or cover 3 match currently, you can do this. You could play half field zone, half field match. And now this is the first time, and probably the biggest adjustment that I love is that you can now play half field zone to over here. And if this guy is still a quarter flat defender, this side will still play match. Okay, so just to prove that, let's just kind of go through and put this tight end on the out route. Okay, and let's take both guys. Let's put number 2 on a flat route over here, if I can. Guess they changed that too. Where is flat route? Oh, it's still L2. Okay. There we go. So on the left hand side, I put our nickel into a hard flat, I think. Right? Actually, let me put him into a curl flat so he doesn't go running there. Okay. So he's going to play back and play zone and react down. This guy's still in a quarter flat. So this side's still playing zone coverage or match coverage. And he's going to match number 2 to the flat like he's playing man to man. Okay. It didn't look like that right there. So let me take a look at that. Oh, I forgot. I apologize. I'm glad I did that. I have to turn off the adjustments that I put on with the flat defender. That overrides everything. Okay. So I apologize. All right. So that's still on. My fault. Let's turn that off. Okay. And let's get back to the same example. And then we'll move to the Mike linebacker. I'm just going to use this play right here. So on the left side, we have a zig. On the right side, we have an out, but I'm just going to change that out to like a 5-yard out. Keep the back end real quick. Okay. And then I'm going to take my nickel and put him into a curl flat. We're going to keep the quarter flat on the other side so we can get a nice little example of two different things. Okay, so the right-hand side is playing match coverage. The left-hand side is playing zone coverage. So just want to show you that. Now we can potentially maybe even play with the Mike linebacker. We'll get to him in a second and just kind of take away the middle of the field. So get the zig. He's sitting on this. Why? Because he's just dropping out. You see his footwork is different. You can tell if it's zone if he does that, right? He starts to kind of angle pedal out to the side. That's zone coverage, all right? Over here, you can see how our linebacker is going to kind of drop straight back and then break downhill. And right there, you can also see how the safety, his footwork, he's still playing match footwork. He's kind of like doing a whole bunch of crazy acrobatics, but he's looking for a vertical of 2. Just so you know, he aligns outside of 2, and then he works the inside leverage on the snap. That's how you know it's match coverage. Look at this safety. He's just pedaling. He never even waited for anything, okay? All right, so let's get to the last player here, the Mike linebacker, or the middle player, and then we're going to end it there. Okay, so the Mike linebacker here, let's just go back up to the original page. This one is always the hardest one to cover. You want to do that first, right? Okay. So our Mike linebacker, he has a run gap, either A gap or B gap. That's fine. Okay, he's reading run. He's reading 3-2. So like I had said, this is the hardest example where we have number 3. It's actually aligned right behind the quarterback. But as soon as he steps this way, this is the side he's reading. 3, this is number 2. Okay. His responsibility, all right, is to match the 3 receiver, all right, the third receiver on any type of out-breaking route or vertical route. Okay. So if we get this combination right here, all right, number 3 works to the, I'm giving you guys the hardest one. Let's get this combination right here. Let's go with the 5-yard out. Okay. Now, our Sam or whoever that player is, our quarter flat weak, is going to take number 2 out, and he's going to work with some width and then work down to number 3. We don't ever really expect him to make a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. It's more like you're working for width relating to 3, obviously seeing if there's another if this guy's coming in. And then once the ball is thrown, you want to be able to make a tackle for at least, for 1 yard minimal gain. Okay. That's that. Let me get rid of these lines. All right. If we had an example here where we did get a fast number 3, okay, our quarter flat defender is going to match that pretty quickly. And then now our 3 receiver hook player is going to work off of number 3 to his side. Most of the time when that guy goes to the flat, he might run a little stick route. You need to get there right now so you could be aggressive. Okay. Now, I did say if 3 goes vertical, you have to match him, right? I did say that. But in this case where we've switched, this is still technically a player that the safety is going to take care of. So if he runs vertical, he runs a corner, this linebacker, all he has to do is stay off the inside hip and just make sure that he's not running something back across the field like a dig route. That's the route that you would have to worry about. So in this example, with this fast 3 here, you don't have to worry about taking number 3 vertical. So that's a little bit confusing, I think, if you think about it. Maybe there's a better way to explain it, but that's pretty much what it is. When is there an example that you potentially would have to take care of number 3 vertical? Is if the rare occurrence happens where he runs through the line of scrimmage here and runs up the field. from this formation in particular, then you would have to take him. Why? Because this player is gone. You don't have anybody capping you. Okay. Now, another situation, which we'll get into the field, okay, we'll talk about it some more, is if this guy was offset and he did run like a little bit like a seam route up the field, okay? The quarter flat defender should not take that. All right. You're still working towards him. And then as long, because if two's vertical, even if two ran like a corner route or something like that, he's gone. So you would now have to match three vertical. So you're looking for basically a rail route. I would call it more of a seam route, not a rail route, a seam route. If he was to work outside fast right now, then like we talked about, our quarter flat defender would take him vertical. Okay. If he ran out and up. So that's something you have to think about. It's one of the hardest things to think about at your position because you got so many other things to worry about, but stopping the run, just making sure you take the crossers back and everything, then, it's kind of hard to take care of that. Now, I do suggest, though, if you are going to play quarters, to play with one of these two players right here. They have probably the most work to do, but you can cover up some of the flaws, okay? So like I had said, if let's just say three is offset here, okay? We got to update this picture and put the back offset, but it is best to probably put him at home because people don't really teach that anymore. Okay, so if he steps this way and now this tight end runs a shallow across the field, like I had said, that's your number three. You need to match him across the field because you don't know what's going on this side of the field or this side of the defense, okay? So I said you have to match him on outs and ups, but however, if three does cross your face or goes across the field, you basically need to match him as well unless you know what's going on the other side, okay? The game will try to do this where I know I'm talking against what I just said, but if he's working inside, then he should be there, so you would see him kind of switch, but don't do that. I think, honestly, you should just match that guy across the field. Now, some people would say, well, why not, coach? You just man him up, right? Just say you're basically playing Meg on that guy, right? Or just for the combinations that I just said, where if he goes out to the flat, like right now, fast outside, to either side, you're not supposed to get him, okay? So you can't just man him up and meg him up in the game. But you kind of are in that situation when it comes to the pass plays. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That's really it when it comes to his responsibilities I can think of right now. I'm not going to go through the run fits because it really does depend on the gap. Okay, but most of the time you're going to have a Mike. I would call it a will in my language, right? You're going to have either A gap or B gap on pretty much most run fronts. Okay, for the most part, that's where you're going to play against an even front. Or even, if it's an odd front, it might be a little bit different, but we're not going to get into that right now. That would be another story. We'll be here for another hour. Okay. All right. So let's just go on the field. Let's take a quick look at like one or two examples because we kind of covered the mic already with a lot of things that's going on. But let's just take a look at some examples that, again, that you need to just be aware of that we just talked about. So with this situation right here, this is considered like a fast three. You see how the Mike linebacker doesn't go to number three? That's not what you want, okay? Actually, let me make sure that all the adjustments are on. We're still matching here, so we're fine. But you don't want this linebacker to step to the field, okay? Because people will take advantage of this. They would run a short route of number two or the new number three, and the only reason why this looks covered is because he's running past 10 yards, so the safety's taking him. But if I were to do the same thing and I had more field, especially, I don't have a lot of field right now. But if I put this guy on a 5-yard out and the guy works away, okay, right now both guys got beat. But if I did that to the field, guys, you would imagine it looks like, there's nobody there to cover. So that's the reason why you got to play with the 3-receiver hook player. I will give you a heads up. In Madden, it really felt like the 3-receiver hook player was playing smarter than ever, okay? I don't know why, but that's what it is. All right, let's just go with 2 out. Let's see, I think they usually play this pretty well. So I'm going to go with 3. This is a fast 3 to the flat, but then the tight end comes underneath. So now the linebacker has the new number 3, and he should match this guy because there's no help from the left side. So if the game is that smart to do that, I wish it would be smarter in other ways. I'm being a little bit, annoyed at the game right now, but this is really good. It's almost like this linebacker knows that this guy is gone. Now, in real life, we can make calls to help each other out to let him know he's here, but here he matches the 3 across the field. That's the computer. So that gives me hope that, not so bad, right? All right, now let me give you the dreaded example of Number one, the running back going through the line of scrimmage. I won't show you how I do this because this is a little bit cheesy. I don't want you to know. But that route right there, okay? And I'm going to put everybody else on a vertical on the inside so we can just pull off the safeties, right? And they shouldn't be there to help. Let me just put Tiny on the corner just in case that right safety tries to get a little nosy. So if you were to run like a route like this, there's a smash combination. Let me get a realistic route here, guys. Right? A lot of people will run stuff like this. There's a route like this in certain formations that are already built for you. Middle linebacker has to run with 3. And we all know that the game doesn't have that coded in. So that's another responsibility that you have to bear. Okay. Now let's do the same route, except let me get the back to run an actual, just regular, kind of like a seam route outside the tackle. I'm pretty sure that this would get it. Let me get the rest of this thing set up real quick. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Long video, but I think you guys wanted to hear how quarters is playing. It's a 2x2. Then we could do 3x1 next and everything else. I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'll be honest with you. You guys deserve it. I think it'd be good for us to do it before Madden drops, and then we can probably compare it to Madden. So I hope you guys don't mind sitting through this long video. I might end up making it public in a day or two as well, just to give everybody a little taste of what we do and how we get things done at a high detail level. And we have lots of examples. Okay, so here we go. So this guy runs through the field. Again, you can see how the linebacker, it's like he's not coded correctly. He went towards him, which was good, but I think it's because he went to the field, to be honest with you. He's kind of in the window, but he's not covering that guy. Okay. So that's something you have to think about. Let me see if there's anything else that we have. A classic combination that could be a little bit tough is just this classic, hold up. Just this classic shallow cross combination, but just with the dig. All right. And the back usually would check through and go to the right. I'm just going to put him on block and release if I can. All right. So this is one of the harder plays that everybody needs to be on the same page. I'm going to do it again because I know when you do it in practice mode the first time it's funky. So the very first thing is take a look at the safety and how he's taking number 2 on this play, which that doesn't happen all the time. So what happens when he doesn't? We have to basically be ready that we have to be prepared to be ready if number 2 is not taken by the safety, all right, on this dig. And with the way that the nickel plays, okay, the way he drops back with depth, it really makes us have to say, you know what, we're going to play. I don't care what's happening on the left side of the world. I'm going to sit here on my right side of the screen. Okay. When I say world, when I say left side of the world, left side of the screen, as we look at it, his right on the field, I need to take care of number 3 coming back across the field. That's my guy. And he kind of starts to do it and then he lets it go. Now, I don't like the way this is playing. This is not going to be consistent. This is not going to end well for anybody. Okay. But that's what's happening right there. If you really want to play that versus that type of route, it's going to be really tough. All right. And you might want to consider calling a different coverage. All right. All right, guys. That was probably the longest 2x2 video, but I went through it slow. I gave you guys some PowerPoint. I think that's good. I was able to draw on the PowerPoint a little bit, get on the field, show you the examples of exactly the techniques that's happening, and then go from there. All right. So 2x2, normal spacing, quarters coverage in the books for this game. Every time they patch the game, I will always look to see if things are playing differently. And then obviously when I play games, I'll give you guys real life examples and cut ups as we go along so you guys can learn from how I messed up or how the computer messed up. All right. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, let me know. Talk to you later, man. Peace.